There are some stories that exist in plain sight, yet somehow remain hidden. You've probably heard of Greg Gutfeld, sharp, outspoken, impossible to ignore on television. But standing just outside that spotlight is someone far more elusive, someone who has built an entire world of influence without demanding attention, a woman whose name rarely trends, yet quietly commands respect in one of the most competitive industries on the planet. So, the real question isn't who Greg Gutfeld is. It's this: who is the woman who captured his attention and never needed the spotlight to prove her worth? Her name is Elena Moussa, and once you start looking into her story, you realize very quickly this isn't just a celebrity wife narrative. It's something far more layered, far more intentional, and far more impressive than most people ever realize. Because Elena didn't just step into someone else's world. She built her own. At first glance, Elena Moussa seems like a contradiction. She exists in an industry built on visibility, fashion, media, design, yet she has mastered the art of staying just out of reach. While others chase attention, she refines her craft. While social media rewards constant exposure, she chooses restraint. And in doing so, she's created something rare: influence without noise. That alone is enough to spark curiosity. How does someone remain so private and still matter so much? To understand that, you have to go back to where it all began. Long before the recognition, before the international collaborations, before her name quietly circulated among elite fashion circles, Elena's journey started in Russia. Like many in the fashion world, her entry point was modeling, but unlike many, she didn't treat it as a destination. For her, it was an education. Modeling gave her something deeper than exposure. It gave her perspective. She learned how clothing moves, how posture changes perception, how lighting, angles, and mood can transform something simple into something unforgettable. She wasn't just being photographed, she was studying the language of visuals in real time. And that understanding would later become one of her greatest advantages. Because eventually Elena stepped away from being in front of the camera and moved behind it. Her transition into editorial work marked a turning point. Working as a photo editor for Maxim Russia, Elena entered a different side of the industry, one that demanded control, precision, and vision. Instead of being directed, she became the one shaping the outcome. She was now responsible for how stories were told visually, how themes were executed, and how images resonated with audiences. This wasn't just a job shift, it was a mindset shift, and it revealed something important about her character. Elena wasn't interested in staying comfortable. She was interested in evolving. From there, her path into styling felt almost inevitable. With her background as a model and her experience in editorial work, she had a rare, almost complete understanding of fashion, from concept to execution. She knew what worked on camera. She understood composition. And, more importantly, she knew how to tell a story without saying a word. That's what separates a stylist from someone who simply puts outfits together. Elena wasn't just creating looks. She was creating narratives. As her reputation grew, so did her reach. Her work began to appear across international publications, each project adding another layer to her credibility. What made her stand out wasn't just her technical skill, it was her ability to adapt. Different cultures, different audiences, different visual expectations. And yet, her work always carried a distinct identity. There's a subtle power in that kind of consistency. It means you're not just following trends, you're shaping them. Her styling projects spanned across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, each one reinforcing her status as someone who understood global aesthetics without losing her personal voice. That balance is incredibly difficult to achieve. Many creatives either become too generic in an attempt to appeal to everyone or too niche to resonate broadly. Elena found a middle ground, and she held on to it. But perhaps the most defining moment in her career came when she decided to take full control of her creative direction. In 2011, she launched the Moussa Project. This wasn't just another step forward, it was a leap. Starting a design company in an industry as competitive and unpredictable as fashion requires more than talent. It demands resilience, strategy, and an unwavering belief in your vision. And Elena had all three. The Moussa project became a space where she could fully express her ideas without compromise. It allowed her to merge everything she had learned, modeling, editing, styling, into something entirely her own. Here, she wasn't just contributing to someone else's vision. She was leading it. The project quickly became a reflection of her identity, thoughtful, refined, and quietly bold. It wasn't about loud statements or chasing trends. It was about creating work that felt intentional, work that lasted, and that approach earned her something far more valuable than attention. It earned her respect. While her professional life was expanding, another story was unfolding, one that would eventually become just as defining. It started in 2004. A chance meeting at a Maxim conference brought together editors from around the world. Among them were Elena Moussa and Greg Gutfeld. At the time, neither could have predicted how significant that moment would become. Their first encounter wasn't dramatic or cinematic in the way people often imagine. But there was something there. Greg has described his attraction as immediate. Elena, however, was more reserved, focused, careful. She didn't rush into anything, and she certainly didn't open up easily. That contrast set the tone for everything that followed, because instead of forcing a connection, Greg did something surprisingly rare. He waited. He allowed things to unfold naturally without pressure. Over time, that patience began to shift the dynamic. What started as distance turned into curiosity, and eventually into something deeper. Their relationship didn't explode into existence. It developed, and that made it stronger. Then came the moment that changed everything. Elena made a decision that would redefine her life. She chose to move to London to be with Greg. It wasn't a small step. It meant leaving behind familiarity, stepping into uncertainty, and trusting something that was still relatively new. But sometimes the most important decisions aren't the safest ones. They're the ones that feel right. Just 5 months after they met, the two were married in a civil ceremony in New York. No spectacle, no elaborate display, just a clear, quiet commitment. To some, it might seem fast, but to them, it felt certain. And that certainty became the foundation of everything that followed. Of course, no relationship exists without challenges. In 2006, Greg faced a major career setback when his role at Maxim UK came to an end. Moments like that have a way of testing everything: confidence, direction, stability. But instead of creating distance, it strengthened their bond. Their relationship became a source of support, a constant during uncertainty. And that's often where the real strength of a partnership reveals itself, not in the easy moments, but in the difficult ones. Through it all, Elena remained exactly who she had always been. Grounded, private, focused. She didn't seek attention. She didn't turn their relationship into a public narrative. She simply continued building her life, her career, and her identity on her own terms. And that's what makes her story so compelling. In a world where visibility is often mistaken for value, Elena Moussa represents something different. She proves that you don't have to be loud to be influential. You don't have to share everything to matter. And you don't have to stand in the spotlight to leave a lasting impact. Her life with Greg reflects that same philosophy. Together, they've built a relationship that exists largely outside the noise of public scrutiny. They share glimpses, small, carefully chosen moments, but never enough to fully satisfy curiosity. And that's intentional, because some things are meant to be protected. Their home in New York City serves as both a personal sanctuary and a creative space. It's where their worlds intersect, media and fashion, commentary and design, without overwhelming each other. And then there's Gus, their French bulldog. It might seem like a small detail, but it adds something human to the story. A reminder that beyond the careers, the achievements, and the intrigue, there's a real life being lived. One filled with simple moments, shared routines, and quiet happiness. What makes Elena Moussa truly fascinating isn't just what she has done. It's how she has done it. She has built a career across multiple disciplines, She has earned recognition in an industry that rarely gives it easily. She has maintained a private life in a world that constantly demands exposure. And she has done all of this without losing her sense of self. That's not common. In fact, it's incredibly rare. Her story challenges a familiar narrative, the idea that one partner's fame inevitably overshadows the other. In this case, the opposite has happened. Elena hasn't been overshadowed. She has simply chosen a different kind of presence, one that doesn't rely on headlines, one that doesn't need validation, one that speaks through work rather than words. And maybe that's why people are so drawn to her, because in a culture built on constant sharing, there's something magnetic about someone who holds something back, someone who reminds us that mystery still has value, that privacy still matters, and that success doesn't always look the way we expect it to. In the end, Elena Moussa's story isn't just about fashion or marriage or career milestones. It's about intention. It's about knowing who you are and choosing how much of it you give to the world. Some people build their lives in public. Others build them quietly and let the results speak for themselves. Elena chose the second path, and somehow that has made her story even louder. Because sometimes the most powerful presence is the one you almost miss.